I'm Ric Edelman. If you're halfway through your professional career, but just starting to save, is it too late? And what if you have extra money every month? Great problem to have, but with so many investment options, what should you do? And we can make them better, stronger, faster. No, not bionic men, but they could be the children of tomorrow. Plus, everyone talks about living a balanced life. Jean will show you how to live a balanced life in The Other Side of Money. Hang on, we've got a lot coming up on this edition of The Truth About Money.
This program is funded in part by TD Ameritrade. At TD Ameritrade, we support investors and independent registered investment advisors every day, providing access to tools, research, and educational resources that help you pursue your goals with confidence.
I'm Ed Burns. I've spent a lot of time around cameras. However, I've never actually swallowed one before. Till now. It's a camera the size of a pill that lets your doctor see inside of you. That's kind of awesome.
Technology is evolving. We believe the way to invest should evolve as well. A prospectus is available at 1-800-iShares, which includes investment objectives, risks, fees, expenses, and other information that you should read and consider carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including possible loss of principal.
I'm Ric Edelman. We're faced with choices every day, and while some are easy, others aren't. You might be confused about choosing investments for your retirement plan, for example, but to me, the answer is just dollars and cents.
Hi, Rick. My name is Heather, and I'm 38 years old. I am single, and I don't have much in the way of a savings or retirement. So I'm wondering, what is the best course of action? Should I put more money into a savings account right now, or should I put it into a 401k?
What we really need to do is recognize our financial future is on our own. So I'm really glad you're asking the question. What we need to recognize is that the purpose of the money is the key determinant in how we're going to save. If you're focusing on retirement, a 401k is essential. And oh, by the way, I sure hope you're focusing on retirement, because everybody ought to be, except those already in retirement. So you're young, you got a long time to go, the future starts now. So yes, you need to join your 401k at work, you need to participate to the maximum extent that your boss allows on a pre-tax basis, and you need to place 100% of your contributions into a diversified stock fund available within your plan. That's the first thing you need to do. But that's not the only thing you need to do. What you also need to do is consider saving to build cash reserves. Because what happens if you suddenly lose your job? What if you suddenly have an unexpected expense? The car breaks down, you fall and break your wrist and run into medical costs. Favorite cousin gets married and you have to travel across the country and buy a gown and presents and incur thousands of dollars of other expenses, et cetera, et cetera. You never know what's going to come up in life, but I can assure you things will come up and they will cost money. So we need to build cash reserves to guard against the unexpected. You need to have anywhere from 6 months to 2 years worth of spending in cash reserves. So I've just given you 2 reasons to save, one of them in a bank account for the present, the other one in a retirement account for the future, and you need to make sure you take care of both of those things right away. We go coast to coast to ask just one question, Celebrity Edition. Do you ever feel guilty about your success?
I probably have guilt feelings, but that's part of my culture. You know, I can't explain why I have this incredibly lucky life. You know, my family was exterminated. I can't. So I don't get that. But, so that's the extent of the guilt feeling. I don't know why God gave me this life and other people get it so rough, you know. So that I can't explain. No, yeah. So if you ask me, do I feel guilty about that? Sure I do, yeah.
What would you do if you had a few extra bucks in your pocket? You might splurge on a latte. But what if you had a few hundred extra dollars? Where would that money go? And that was a question I recently answered for troops at Fort Belvoir.
My question has to do with where to allocate some extra money towards saving, or I have about $500 a month that I'd like to put towards savings. We currently put money towards a TSP. We don't have any debt.
So you're maxing out the thrift savings plan?
I don't think we're maxing that out.
Do that.
Okay.
Max that out.
Well, here's the caveat, though. So the only thing I'm concerned at, we just got rid of a house that we were selling. We tried to sell for 4 years, and we lost everything that we had invested in. So we don't have a nest egg for our house as a down payment in about 10 years or so, when we will probably retire. And so
what makes you think that matters?
Because I would like to put a down payment on a house. I've seen the interest that, a 200.
So your worry is that you're throwing money away on rent?
No, because I know we'll be renting for the foreseeable future.
So tell me again what the thought process is that says I'd really rather save up money so I could make a down payment on a house, as opposed to taking that money and throwing it into my thrift plan.
Because I guess we have an emergency cash reserve as well, but I don't feel I have midterm savings. So we have a new car we'll have to get in another year or so. We probably have obligations to our parents that we can foresee coming, helping them out, and then this possible down payment in 10 years when we get out of the military.
Okay,
and stop moving around.
So let me take a step backward and fill in a missing piece that might help clarify for you. When I say that you need to have 12 months worth of spending in cash reserves, which you have, that 12 months worth of spending is in addition to known expenses that are coming up. Many of us can anticipate a big expense in another year or two. I'm planning to buy a car, for example, or my kid is going to be going to summer camp and it's going to cost $1,500, or whatever the situation might be. So if you know you're going to need to buy a new car, and you know you're going to need, I'll make this up, $3,000 as a down payment for it, then you need to put $3,000 in cash reserves in addition to your 12 months of savings.
Okay.
Because I don't want you to dip into that 12 months in order to make the down payment on that car. The rainy day fund ideally should never be used, so that if you do ever have to use it, you know it's there. And that would argue for trying to do that with the house as well. But the reason I'm putting house secondarily is because nothing is more important than your retirement. When you buy a car, you can pay for that car while you're driving it. By the same notion, when you're living in a house for 30 years, you can be paying for the house while you're living in the house. But when it comes to retirement, you cannot pay for retirement while you're in retirement. Retirement is the only thing that must be pre-funded.
Given what you just said, I tend to be more conservative. I'm worried that since we're not actually retired and not drawing on the pension, then that shouldn't figure into our retirement planning necessarily.
What shouldn't be figuring?
The pension, because it's not a given pension yet.
Yes, it is. That is a very reasonable expectation. But now let's turn that into the real world. How do I know if I've saved enough? This is what financial planning is all about. So what we would do as a financial planner is say, show me your expected sources of income in retirement. The pension is a key one. In the private sector, it would be Social Security. Maybe you'll have both if you're working in the private sector. So we're going to look at Social Security income, pension income. We're going to look at investment income. We're going to look at any inheritance you might be anticipating. We're also going to then look at your expected expenses in retirement. So if we're expecting that you're going to spend $5,000 a month, and we have pension income of $3,000 a month, well, we only have $2,000 left we got to come up with. And then we'll figure out how much money do we have to save to build a piggy bank that can generate $2,000 a month, and we're done. In other words, to ignore the pension is a very big mistake. It'll force you to work a lot harder than you have to work. So if you are reasonably confident your husband will put in his full years of service in the military to qualify for the pension, it is equally reasonable to assume that Uncle Sam will honor that pledge.
Thank you.
IRA stands for Individual Retirement Account, Individual Retirement Arrangement, Individual Retirement Assistance, or Individual Retirement Assets. We'll be back with the answer right after this.
Will our children be stronger and smarter and better looking than us? Scientist and entrepreneur Raymond McCauley says we can bioengineer the attributes we want our kids to have. The question is, should we? When we start talking about gene sequencing and genome and biotechnology, people get a little scared.
I think it's something everybody's concerned about because, you know, it affects each of us so viscerally. Genetic engineering for humans, for disease, is already happening. And we're about to start seeing some genetic engineering for performance enhancement.
Meaning I want to be stronger, faster, smarter.
And think Lance Armstrong, but legit. And the idea that, you know, what does that look like? The gene doping. Could we go ahead and have more red blood cells, more white blood cells?
Will this occur prior to birth, where parents will say, I want this child to be smarter, faster, stronger, prettier, have certain capabilities, such as artistic as opposed to scientific? Are we going to be able to order a child the way we currently order an automobile?
We're already kind of seeing the first slices of this brave new world where parents who are going through IVF, in vitro fertilization, sometimes are able to go ahead and decide, do you want a son or a daughter? And what else can we do in that equation? It's a little harder to pick for artistic ability still, but I've heard different parents and different doctors talking about, well, what would be good for soccer? So we're starting to creep up on that already. Now, on the bad side, on the dark side of that, what we're doing essentially, especially when we're going beyond just medicine, stopping something that would hurt our children as they grow up, whenever we're looking at enhancement, we're experimenting on our children. And
before they're born.
Exactly.
And that you referred to it as the dark side. There are a lot of folks who are really freaked out about these concepts. There's no question that the technology is advancing because so many technologists are really focused on, wow, look what I can do, as opposed to asking the question, should I be doing it? So what is society doing? What does society need to do to protect against the dark side of these technologies?
I think the very best thing is for society to be aware of what's possible and what's coming. Being neo-Luddites, being, I don't know, the techno-Amish, is going to not work too well in a global society where everybody's trying everything all the time.
So what do you do then?
Well, one of my things, and I kind of talk about this, the 4 horsemen of the bioapocalypse, the folks you don't want to have working on things are, for instance, failed states. You know, do you want North Korea to be the guys working on genetic engineering? Do you want it to be a black government project with a budget that's lined out and no ethical oversight or discussion? Do you want this in commercial laboratories where they're not talking about what they're doing? And our 4th horseman is the lone scientist inventor in the basement that everybody says, well, he was a really nice guy and kind of quiet.
Well, until he blew up the neighborhood.
Exactly.
Of your 4 horsemen, 3 of them are of a kind, government, corporation, and failed state. Those are big budget, unlimited resource organizations. The 4th one, though, is a little different, the guy in his basement. Due to the technologies today, is it reasonable, is it possible for an individual, some kid in high school, accessing the equipment necessary to be able to do this?
It is so possible. And 10 years ago, a crash government program with $1 billion budget in 10 years will be a junior high school science project. And I mean that literally. The Human Genome Project, which was a $1.5 billion US project, we can now do that commercially for less than $2,000. And so we're talking million factor decreases in cost and increases in throughput.
So tell me what this means for investors.
One of the things I think is innovation is not going to come necessarily, and usually not, from big commercial entities. We're seeing more schools figuring out how they can go ahead and make money from what they're doing, and we're seeing more people leaving schools to do their own spin-offs, and we're seeing this sort of classic American myth made real, inventor working in a garage trying to make some of their own things. So we're going to see a huge amount of innovation.
What should students looking to figure out what kind of career to go into, what should they be focusing on in college?
I would actually say what should they be focusing on in maybe 5th grade, because we're seeing an enormous uptake of some of these new technologies, and whenever students can go hands-on, it really changes the way they are looking at what they want to do. A kid with a pipetter and a petri dish understands they've got a utility, they've got a way to change nature and see what happens next. So start them early, molecular biology and bioinformatics. You know, it's all computers and cells.
Ray, thanks very much.
Thank you.
IRA stands for B, Individual Retirement Arrangement.
Financial advisors like me work to help you build a better financial future. And each week, Anderson Wozni and Brandon Corso join me on the radio to help people find solutions to their money matters. First up, we're going to go to Jim. He's in Maryland.
My question is, I bought my house 20 years ago, and coming to, the end of a 30-year mortgage. And if I go out and sell it in my 10 more years, I remember when my dad did this, he got like $150,000 that was non-taxable.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there because I know where you're going. And you are dealing with, you're trying to figure out what's going to be the tax liability when you sell your house. And you're thinking, you knew what the law was way back when your dad did it and you observed and so on. But that tax law is been gone since 1997. So we need to go into our Wayback Machine. The law used to be ridiculously complex and onerous. And it was, what, Brandon, $125,000?
And it was a one-time exclusion, and you had to be over the age of 55. And so you could exclude it, but you had to buy a new house that was equal or greater value to take advantage of.
And that law was absurd, ridiculous, and thank goodness gone. What is the law now, Anderson?
Well, as long as you have lived in the house for more than 2 years and it was a primary residence, then the first $250,000 per person, or a married couple is $500,000 of gain is tax-free.
So, Jim, let's make it real simple. You've lived in the house more than 2 years, yes?
Yes.
And how much did you pay to buy the house?
Well, let's say 167.
And how much have you added in improvements over the years?
Probably 15.
So let's pretend, for easy math, that the house's cost is $200,000. We're going to ignore real estate commissions and other expenses, blah, blah, blah. We'll pretend that you paid a grand total over the years of $200,000 between the purchase price and improvements. Now, when you sell the house, how much are you going to sell it for?
Probably at $500,000.
So you take a selling price of $500,000, you subtract the $200,000 you paid to buy it, the profit is therefore $300,000, and Anderson, the tax is?
Well, if Jim is married, then it's nothing.
Married, yeah.
No
because
tax at all.
if you're married, then your $500,000 is tax-free, and he's only got a $300,000 profit.
So,
if he isn't married,
then he'd have to pay capital gains taxes on $50,000, and that would be at whatever your capital gains rate may be. I used to be able to say just 15%, but now it depends.
So let's pretend that the capital gains rate is 20%. He would pay 20% of $50,000, which is $10,000. So on the sale of your house of $300,000, you would pay $10,000.
Yeah.
But he's married, so it'd be zero.
Exactly. So it's really the calculation is dramatically simpler. It's much, much easier. And oh, by the way, this applies on every house you ever sell. So if you sell this house...
Where does this Obama fee come in?
Oh, you're talking about the 3.8% additional tax on capital gains. That's if your income is over $200,000, correct?
But the
exclusion doesn't apply on the exclusion. It's only on the amount above the exclusion.
So only if...
Okay.
So, bottom line is it's not something you have to worry about right now, and it is not a one-time event. It's something that occurs on every home you own as long as you stay in each home for 2 years or more, and blah, blah, blah. So simple, easy, and it just reflects the wonderful dangers of old thinking. You know, and here's Jim. You know, the last time I looked at this was the rule.
Yeah.
And he has had no reason to look at this because his father sold his house a long time ago, and that was the last time he looked at this. And how often do we think we know what the rule is because the last time we looked at it was when it was relevant to us? So, Jim, you did the right thing by asking the question before you sold that house. Most of us have heard the joke, I'm so broke I can't pay attention. Well, here are some real funny money moments from Dangerfield's Comedy Club in New York.
My only thing I'm afraid of being the man in the house is if something breaks, I'm like, I can't fix things. And like, you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up, you know what I mean? We couldn't afford professional fixers, whatever you call them, you know what I mean? So my dad did all the fixing, who was not handy with tools, as they say. He was one of these people that once he fixed something, like it never quite worked the same after that, you know what I mean? You needed instructions how to operate the mechanism. He spent 9 hours fixing the kitchen sink. He's like, all right, here's how you operate it. You want to turn the water off. You can't put it in the off position. Crank it to the right. Like you want cold water, then it's going to go off. I'm like, what do I do now if I want cold water? He's like, you got to put the TV on to channel 2.
If you could ask a financial advisor just one question, what would it be? Here's one we hear from a lot of people. What is the one question you wish all clients would ask?
How can you help me invest my lottery winnings? Or, I guess the one question I would want people to ask is to just ask for help. You know, do I have enough life insurance? Do I have enough saved for retirement? Am I investing appropriately? It's just understanding we all can't be experts in everything, so just asking for help for something like this.
Having a balanced checkbook doesn't mean you've got a balanced life. To explain what that means, here's my wife and business partner, Jean Edelman, with The Other Side of Money.
I talk about a balanced chair of life, and there are 4 pieces. There's our intellect, our intuition, our emotions, and our spiritual life. And so the key to happiness is having all 4 of those balanced. The intellectual piece of this balanced chair is we tend to overthink things as human beings. We are constantly stuck in our head. What did this person say? Oh my gosh, what do they mean by that? What do they, you know, we just overthink. And we need to find activities that kind of get us out of our head. Something outside in nature, gardening, running, any type of exercise. We want to get out of our thinking and more maybe into our body or more into the environment. And so some of those activities will help create a little bit more balance. The second leg of our balanced chair is our emotions. And we as a society, we pent up our emotions. I don't know why and who said it, but it's kind of like we're not allowed to express ourselves. And so I'm giving everybody out there permission to express yourself because it's very important for a healthy individual. Great ways for emotions are art, to throw some paint on the canvas. Music is a great release for our emotions. Journaling, something just quiet and peaceful for us to write down all of our thoughts. No one has to see them. That is a great release for our emotion. For the third leg of our balanced chair, it's a spiritual piece. And for each of us, that's totally different, and it's not about religion. It's really just about understanding that there is something greater that we're all a part of. Understanding that we are all connected. We're all connected and we all need each other. And we're a part of something very, very big. And that helps create balance in our spiritual leg of our chair. The fourth leg to our balanced chair is intuition. We all are born with great intuition. Unfortunately, sometimes it's not fostered. We all hear that little voice sometimes that says, make a left and not a right. Tap into that. That's the beginning of creating that balance for the intuitive piece of ourselves.
Thanks, Jean, for reminding us that this TV show is more personal than finance. And that's our show for today. I'm Ric Edelman for The Truth About Money. See you next time. To learn more about the topics we discussed on this episode and a chance to ask your questions, visit our website at truthaboutmoneytv.com. And stay connected by liking us on Facebook and following us on Twitter.